bill, we decided to do a double bill within the single slot that we got.
Mark Baldwin OBE, never forget the OBE.
Well, you know, I'm not that kind of person, but my eyes would be like...
Oh my goodness, she's booked and she's busy.
The modern dance, the ballet, the African, the jazz, the hip hop, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Horton technique, bass technique.
I've dabbled, and you made yourself known to me. I think you sort of danced over into my direction.
His name's Ninja.
Ninja the cat?
Ninja.
Right. Did you just wave at your cat?
I did, I'll show him this later.
Welcome back to the Ballet Nights Podcast, the podcast where we bring you closer to the artists' stories and hear their stories in their own words. My name is Jamiel Devernay-Laurence, I am your host, and today's guest is a former star of Richard Alston Dance Company, a choreographer, and one half of the new contemporary dance sensation, BlacBrik. Welcome to the show, Nahum McLean.
Thank you, thanks for having me.
Thanking me before I've even introed you. So Naeem, we're just getting to know each other.
We are.
We don't go way back, but we do have a lot of people in common, right?
We do.
So, I mean, before we get into how we met, I wanted to talk about Richard Alston. He is a big part of the history of your dance career. You often refer back to Richard when we talk about our creative ideas and what we're thinking. So tell us about Dancing for Richard.
Well, Dancing for Richard I was quite older in my career because I moved from New York back to the UK, and I just finished working with Mark, who obviously has that connection there.
Which Mark are we talking about for our audience that are new to all of this?
Mark Baldwin OBE, plus.
Mark Baldwin OBE, never forget the OBE.
Oh, of course, you know. And I then went on to dance with Richard after working with Mark, and he saw me in the performance with the rest of his company who were also in that performance. And for me, it was just quite a pivotal moment for me because I trained as a modern dancer, and it was actually the final year of Richard Alston being a company in this country.
Right.
So for me, it was quite important to be a part of one of those legacies, the last standing legacy of kind of modern dance, really, you know, as we don't really have as many modern dance companies in the UK anymore. So,
well, we don't have a lot of companies. I think there's a bit of a crisis, isn't there? I mean, the thing you said there that I thought was wonderful and so casual is I was just coming back from New York. So let's go back a few steps then. So you were in New York because you trained at the Ailey School.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really exciting.
It was. I mean, I was 18. I had just moved from another country, and I was going to, I really wanted to train at the Ailey School because it's very diverse in terms of the dance styles that they do. The modern dance, the ballet, the African, the jazz, the hip hop. So I really wanted to train in that, but primarily I love modern dance. I always have, modern and contemporary. So yeah, I moved over when I was 18. I was on the scholarship program for about 2 years. And yeah, it's an incredible time of my life. After that, I then moved on to freelancing in New York. I mean, during the time in the Ailey School, I was able to dance with the company and guest with other companies like Complexions, which was amazing.
Just to bring you up on that. So when you were at the Ailey School, you mentioned all those different styles. It doesn't sound like the school I went to in terms of the way you're kind of the structure of the day. Mm-hmm. So obviously we had kind of ballet, contemporary, we had some tap. We had zero hip hop, although we did like breakdancing in the studios in our spare time. So you mentioned a ton more. How did that work? What did a week look like for you?
So you always have 5 ballet classes a day and 5 modern classes a day.
5 ballet classes?
Oh my God, a week.
A week, okay. I was going to say, even by Ballet Night standards, I think that's a bit too much ballet.
Can you imagine?
Right.
5 ballet classes a week, 5 modern classes a week. And that will either be in Graham or the Horton technique. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Horton technique, but that is kind of the base technique.
I've dabbled. Horton technique, I mean, obviously Martha Graham technique, this is a stable of contemporary dance. Mm-hmm. In America, you're saying the word modern a lot, and I think some of our audience will be thinking of maybe ISTD, you know, in the UK jazz, and modern is used differently in, I think, American vernacular. So Horton is a kind of hallmark of that modern. It's something that the Ailey company do.
Yeah.
I think so much at once is different to what we know here in the UK. And so for our worldwide audience that maybe don't know about Horton and modern dance, give us a crash course.
So I guess modern dance, it kind of predates contemporary, where the choreographers or the pioneers, should I say, wanted to create something that was a bit more off the axis, a little bit more daring. So we have our modern dance techniques like Martha Graham, Merce Cunningham, which are all, I would say, East Coast modern dance techniques.
Right.
And then you have Lester Horton, which is very West Coast. So it's very linear, very, compared to the East Coast, which is very curved, that you see like very inwards. Whereas
This is like the Bloods and the Crips of
It
modern
kind of
dance,
is.
like a whole thing. Except they all liked each other, I'm assuming.
Exactly.
So.
And funnily enough, I mean, I'm a bit of a dance nerd in that sense. I was doing some research, and Merce Cunningham actually went to a summer intensive of Leicester, where Lester Horton was teaching and
Right.
did his choreography and stuff like that. So it was all very interconnected. And as we know, Merce danced with Martha. So the modern dance world is very much a eclectic view on dance, kind of before contemporary kind of came into the realm where it was a bit more mixed.
I mean, I was just thinking about what you said there with Merce as well. Like, he also did things with Twyla Tharp. So he turned up to do Twyla Tharp's Hundreds, which was 100 different, I think, 11 count phrases. And 2 dancers had to learn all of them. And then people were invited for this kind of happening where they'd learn 1 each. So it's interesting that there was that kind of collaboration.
Right.
One of the exciting things about some of the professional development classes that you're going to be teaching on with us at Jamiel Lawrence Creation here on this stage, yes, it is that we do bring together a lot of voices that are all independently trying to move things forward, but it's not until they come together that, you know, Ballet Nights wouldn't be possible without that collaboration. So do you see anything today that reminds you of that kind of story of, you know, Merce going to Graham's class, Graham passing that on to the next one, Cunningham going to Twyla Tharp? Is there as much of that, do you think? Do you think people are engaging in each other's styles and ideas?
Definitely not as much as I think could be.
Right.
But I definitely think naturally, I mean, the community is small. So, for example, at Clydo,
Yes, seeing them tonight, but I'm not going to say what the date is because it'll date the podcast. Yeah, so that's Faye Stoser and Hannah Ekholm.
exactly. And so myself and Joshie Harriet, my associate partner, we had a studio, and they would come and rehearse at our studio. We would give them space and stuff like that. So I definitely feel like there's a collaboration and a crossover there.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like there could be more space for us to work together as artists. But, you know, within the climate, I feel like everyone's just trying to get their work done, period.
Well, there's a pressure on personal brand that maybe wasn't there before, and that's to do with not having platforms that maybe welcome as much as they can because maybe they're underfunded. I mean, you said something there about more, and, you know, one of the hallmarks of any production that's powered by fundamentally dance, that powers Ballet Nights, is more dance, more opportunity, more programming. And that actually gives us a moment to get into my actual first question, because we're going on these beautiful tangents and I love it. But I think it's really important for our younger listeners to understand how we met and what happened next. So I first met you at Ministry of Sound, and that was our New Voices program. And you made yourself known to me. I think you sort of danced over into my direction after when the club night began. And I was like, hey, you're like, hey. And then it got really serious. And we talked about opportunity. What do you remember about that show?
For me, coming to see the New Voices, it was just nice to see. I've seen quite a lot of, during my time across different places, a lot of dance shows that are in kind of that setting, but never quite one like this, where there was multiple stages that there were, where there was, I mean, classical ballet, and not classical ballet, but contemporary in that setting. It's normally a bit more, as we say in New York, downtown contemporary that I would normally see in that setting.
So like Joshua Junker of the Royal Ballet, soloist of the Royal Ballet, mobbed by 300 people who all can't quite see fully,
right,
to give it that like gig mentality,
exactly,
but also drive reviewers crazy. So you mentioned New York instantly when you're explaining this. What is that? Why is New York relevant to that style of show then?
Well, I was saying that what I'd seen before what I'd seen in New York hadn't really existed in the same way that Ballet Nights did exist. There was things like BC Beat, which was more from the Broadway perspective, as well as contemporary choreographers, but more on that commercial theatre side. And then anything else was, like I said, a bit more downtown contemporary dance. So there wasn't really that ballet, as well as I don't want to butcher the name, but the duet, the two.
So we had neoclassical, we had ballet, we had contemporary dance, we had duets, like we had Watson and Woodvine, we had Kennedy Junior Montanga with Guy Salim from Stomp.
It was a very mixed program, and it was so it was quite beautiful to see, and it kind of made me see that this platform was something that I definitely wanted to become a part of in some way or form, just because I felt like there was space for your voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think initially your reaction in the club, under the influence of many lights and things happening and me dancing, and actually I think after that show I had to go and sit down for an hour before I was able to come out to the public, because I thought putting on a show in a kind of shed in East London was going to be a challenge, but putting it on in a club that's never cued lights before, has a dance floor, that was a whole other level. So I sort of passed out for about an hour. And they have a medical officer there, so that's great, because it is a club in London. But then once the dust settled, we kind of met, and the initial reaction was, this is a good thing. And there's many people that say this is a good thing from the industry. But the next thing you did, which I think is so important for others to learn in your position, where you're kind of in that emerging bit, and over there's the established bit, and in between is just hell of figuring out how you perpetuate a career. You sent me a remarkable pitch. It was, for everybody out there, without revealing too many secrets, it was formatted beautifully. It was clear. The language in it was really descriptive, but also to the point. And actually, pitching is nothing new, but it's maybe not the first thing that we think about as dancers, as choreographers. It's certainly not something they teach in colleges currently, which I hope changes. It was about 10 pages, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And this was about your company, BlacBrik, which is a partnership with Darius Drooh.
Yes.
Am I saying Drew right?
You are.
I still haven't met Darius, so I'm so glad. You could tell me I am, and then he meets me and he says, what's Naeem told you? But so you pitched me this duo. For those that haven't seen the pitch, tell us a bit about BlacBrik.
So BlacBrik was formed. Me and Darius, we go way back. We were friends together in school in New York, and we choreographed together there. And we just enjoyed it so much. We ended up doing the New York Jazz Choreography Festival. And from there, I moved back to London. He was in California, where he's from. And it wasn't until he joined The Lion King that we were able to kind of rekindle that choreographic flame. And somebody asked us to someone asked me to do a solo, actually. And I was like, let's do a duet. And from there, it just kind of took off in a sense. It was...
So you got an opportunity and you decided to share that opportunity. So that kind of brings us full circle to the collaborative way of working.
No, absolutely.
Right.
Because I think that's really important. And I think especially, I've always loved choreographing, but for me, I as most choreographers do, we love groups. We love large casts, you know what I mean? But a duet was also something that I hadn't necessarily done before. We hadn't done before. So it came with its challenges, but we had such a good time doing it. We did our first performance. It was at the Place in London. And we were so we kind of worried.
You were worried?
Yeah, we were like...
You're not filling me with confidence. For those that don't know, BlacBrik are coming to Ballet Nights 1st of April 2025.
Like, oh, Lord. We were like, hope they like it. And then, the audience reception was just great. They loved it. And we realized that, we realized that our voice, that we had a voice and we had something to say. And, then we decided to do Resolution, which was just a few months later, where we did a double bill. We decided to do a double bill within the single slot that we got. We were
so you're always splitting things in two. So if I come to you and say, here's £1 million for this next massive creation, you're immediately going to chop it in two and say, we can do 2 new creations.
We'll give you 2 creations.
Yeah, we'll give you 2
we'll give you international tour and a national
tour.
Right,
so we've always got a sequel coming. Okay, great. Audiences love, like you said, more people on stage. We recently had a young final year student from Rambert, Grace O'Brien. She did this piece on stage and it allowed us to put 7 dancers on. And the audience went wild. It was potentially, pound for pound, the heavyweight champion of that show. But I think where audiences love it, people who are in the industry then say, well, that would be lovely and we'd all like access to make group works, but that's 7 mouths to feed, if you like. It must have been a interesting decision to say, here's a fee and an opportunity for me, and I want to split it with Darius. Would you say that's the biggest barrier, the cost to go bigger, I guess?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, obviously, because we're such close friends, I knew that it wasn't necessarily going to be a financial thing. And in a climate where dance artists are kind of sometimes being, hate to say it, but exploited, you don't want to be that person's like, hey, you do my piece, I'm fucking only pay you a tenner, but do you know what I mean? So
a tenner? Don't even pay me at that point. At that point, I think we'll just say, look, I don't know if this. Yeah, thank you for that, but
you don't really want to ask people to work for free, unless.
But you're saying people do want people to work for free.
Well, I mean, we've come from, I feel like we're in not a different time now, but we're at a time where it's a big thing where people don't want to be exploited and people don't want to exploit dancers. So I feel, well, I'm a big advocate for that as well, making sure, and I know you are as well, making sure people get paid.
Hashtag fun, hashtag fund freelance dance.
Exactly.
Do you think that maybe there's a combination here? Dancers, choreographers are not educated at college or self-educated in how to put together a budget that would balance. And also, I guess, is it an easier choice to say to people that trust you and do me this favor, versus going and actually solving that problem? Because the thing I'm a huge advocate for is seeking investment, seeking partnership, seeking donors, whatever it is. If you're making a piece about gardening, don't know why you would be, and there's Gardeners World, for example, write to them, say to them, we think this could, reflect your message. You could bring your people to the show. You could talk about it in your magazine. It would be a new thing for your brand. Do you think that's a harder thing, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of it, I mean, as training dancers know, I mean, we're just drilled dance to a point where we kind of don't even think about those other things, those other steps that need to take place. I mean, sometimes I talk with you and you just say stuff and I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but to be fair to you, I mean, so obviously Ballet Nights is the leading production from Fundamentally Dance. We kind of gone for this powered by Fundamentally Dance moniker. And that's to do with the idea that, when I was a dancer, I also wasn't able to fathom PR, marketing, promotion, budgets, pitching, everything at once. And I think you're doing a remarkable job. But, we want to be that organisation that can maybe cradle those items for an artist and then make those pitches to a kind of invited circle of either donors or investors who understand what's at stake. And one of the things that I think dance has failed to do and is getting better at now is actually productify what it is. And I know artists hate the word product, hate the word commercial, but if we want someone else to pay for it, all of a sudden those things become important. Absolutely. If you want a roof over your head, maybe think about these things. And I try to encourage as many artists as come to me, not to say, can Ballet Nights fix all your problems, but could a process like Ballet Nights, could you be eligible for that by packaging it up? What was your plan to get there? And I have to say, your plan for BlacBrik was very impressive. What are you going to be giving us on the 1st of April with Darius Drooh when he's not in the circle of life on stage in the West End now?
So we'll be doing our work, Death of the Bachelors.
Death of the Bachelors?
Yes.
Okay.
And Death of the Bachelors is, me and Darius, we're very funny. We like to have a lot of fun, and we sometimes will do caricature stuff about, and this particular one was kind of about the older men in our life, and we always used to think about ourselves as older men and how, you can't be playing the field and out there, and because eventually, you will start to wrinkle or to get go grey, and it was kind of, the piece was kind of an expression about how when you get older you might feel as if that you don't have it anymore. But
it's like you're inside my mind.
But as we get older, we also find new ways of expressing ourselves, new ways of loving, new ways of being. So it's a bit of a celebration of life, really. It's one of those pieces where, compared to our other works, it's a little bit more, not abstract, but a bit more themed in a not darker sense, but...
Well, I think you have some very serious things to... you keep talking about what you want to say, and our first commissioning policy, literally policy that I have written down, is what are you trying to say? Mm-hmm. So it's really interesting to hear about that very relatable and specific part of growing older. I think that, it's something I certainly immediately feel interested in hearing more about and therefore seeing danced. And I think if you can make that dance change someone's opinion or reflect how they're feeling, I mean... for me, that's the instant commissioning, yes. We want audiences to feel. We want them to see themselves on stage. I always say that if there's no audience for what you're making because you've not made what you're making the why of it clear, then you're just in a tracksuit rolling around the studio, screaming at yourself, looking in a mirror. And that's fine. But, that's very hard to productify. It's very hard to bring into our style of variety show. It becomes much harder if you then want to do a fuller evening. I mean, would this be on its own, or were there other elements in a longer evening you'd talk about?
In terms of
that particular piece with Death of the Bachelors?
Well, Death of the Bachelors then became a part of a a show which we did for Resolution called Episodes of Blue.
Was it 2 episodes?
Well, it was. It's a 3rd episode, but they don't allow you that time. But it was for us. It was a case of building the show as quickly as possible, but without the resources that we have. So we were like, well, we can take this time, and we know we have this piece, and we know we can extend this piece, because that piece was then extended for the Leicester Curve Serendipity in Leicester, and we have this other piece as well, which can also be extended. So for us, it was a case of having 2 pieces that we can then work on deeper when we have the time, when we have the commission money, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it's really beautiful how you talk about your passion for wanting to make it happen and having limited resources, but that won't stop you. What I'd say is what then stops people at that next stage is not asking for help and trying to independently achieve. Mm-hmm. And it can even be competitive, I'd say. People identify one funding source because they think that works, and then everyone tries to get it. And I think that the competition for dance isn't other dance. It's all the other things people could do with their spare time, right? Ryoichi Hirano, principal of the Royal Ballet, was here talking about all the restaurants he likes to visit, and we'll come to your cooking skills soon, right? But it really is about coming together, and actually there's no chance that your idea is also someone else's idea, but when it is, even better. Now you have people working towards the same goal, and that's really the hallmark of every production. I mean, I'm sure you've been in a process where the costumes come out of nowhere or the music all of a sudden doesn't quite match the subject matter, and that's usually to do with the why of the work not being communicated production wide, and again maybe because it isn't clear. So you have one other work that we've been talking about, that's Don't Step on My Shoes, or Don't Step on My Shoe. Could you tell us about that?
So Don't Step on My Shoes, it's quite funny actually.
I thought it was quite a serious subject. Okay.
Well, it's quite funny the way we ended up making it. I mean, like I said, me and Darius were just jokes this, and he came up to me. So if you don't know, in the Black community, it's not as much as it used to be, but it still exists. But back in the day, if you stepped on a Black man's shoes, it would all kick off. It was like this massive thing. If you was in a club, I mean, it would just go all the way off.
So it's a literal thing, but it also symbolically held a lot of weight.
Exactly, and it wasn't necessarily to do with race. It wasn't whether no matter what colour you were, if you stepped in the shoes, it would cause a problem. Right. And Darius came to the UK, and he stepped on someone's shoes in a train.
Sorry, the person making the piece about this actually did it to someone.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be the other way around. Okay.
And the guy kicked off, obviously in a London accent. Yeah. And Darius just started laughing. He just couldn't believe that this was kind of like a phenomenon that was across the diaspora. And I'm Caribbean, and I know that it's the same thing in Jamaica, and it's the same thing in America, and it's the same thing over here.
If it was those shoes, just give the camera your shoes there. Let's have a little, right. If you stepped on those shoes, would you kick off?
Well, I'm not that kind of person, but my eyes would be like...
Yeah.
I remember someone stepping on my sister's shoes when I was a kid, and she just went crazy. And I was just kind of, it's like, but we started to basically talk about what does that actually mean, and why does that feel so much? And we kind of came to the conclusion, especially as while we're doing research and looking at other interviews online, and we came to that conclusion that it wasn't an artificial thing. It wasn't to do with the shoes. It was more to do with the pride, and how when we look at African American people, Caribbean people, Black British people, fashion has always been a sense of expressing people's selves without, even if they haven't got a lot. Even if you look at kind of like the ghetto fabulous kind of big hoop earrings, it's really cheap jewelry, but they would dress it up, and everything was always about looking good. Even if you don't have a lot, making sure you look good. So
the ballroom scene, even like that, then going to the next level of make it a competition.
Precisely.
Who can wear the worst stuff but make it work?
Exactly, and that is very much a massive thing within the Black community, and we kind of wanted to. So we kind of wanted to kind of tell our audience, those that are from the community and who might not even understand why they are like this or why their uncle or brother is like this, give them another perspective as to why. And the piece kind of very much does that. There's some spoken word and interviews from various people, and then for people who aren't from the community to learn something and to see that, you know, this does sound crazy. This does sound crazy, but by the end of the piece, and when people have seen the piece, and when by the end they were like, wow, I actually learned something. I didn't know that. And that was something that's quite important for me and Darius as well, is that, you know, we're also telling the stories from our community that people might not know.
Well, it's funny you say that. I was at the Legends program at the Royal Opera House back in late October.
Legacy, isn't it?
Legacy. Did I say Legends?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Well, let me tell you, there were some legends on stage. But the Legacies program was interesting. The presentation outside was beautiful. I couldn't believe how many of the teachers that taught me had played such an important role in Black British dance. And actually, it made it more recent in my head, actually. This wasn't something that was far away and we're still celebrating it, but actually this is really current in some cases too. And I thought it was a beautiful program, and a lot of voices were heard, but actually I think there was an absence of some voices, which is the younger emerging Black community here in London, who's got, you know, subject matter like you're sharing. And I think that we're really honoured to have you at Ballet Nights for a start in April the 1st. Which will be one piece. We won't be splitting that into a double bill.
How can I?
But also, I would say that, you know, this issue is bigger than any one program, any one set of dancers, and it's my hope that the audiences will see that we do celebrate this issue, as we celebrate many issues. Who are some of the other voices around you, maybe here in London, that you feel have some authority in this say?
Monique Jonas, she's doing a lot of work recently.
Monique Jonas, yes. I've been on her podcast.
Oh, right, yeah.
It was very scary. When it's not your own podcast, it's actually terrifying, so I know how you feel. She's got a lot going on. She's making films, she's making dance, she's dancing for Matthew Bourne. She's a real force. And actually, I did feel her absence at the Legacy program. Who else would you say? Any other voices you'd like to see more of?
I mean, unfortunately, I didn't get to see the Legacy program, but you know the Elaine twins?
Oh, the Elaine sisters.
Elaine.
Yes. I think it's Elaine. You're saying Elaine. I don't want to.
To be honest with you, I'm doing it from reading.
Okay, great. Well, I've met them. I'm very relieved then. I've met them. And
I never asked them the last name.
No, they're really fantastic. They've had a big impact on some of our supporters as well. So we're hoping to tie up something with them in the show at some point. You beat them to it. Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the Ballet Nights podcast. For tickets to our live shows, seasonal offers and discounts, and to read our exclusive blog releases, you can sign up to the mailing list at balletnights.com. And if you'd like to support the channel, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon for notifications. And now, back to the pod. If it's not dance, what is it?
For me? Oh, cooking. I would open a restaurant if I could. I've got a few restaurant ideas. I won't give them all out yet.
Is it 2 ideas?
There's a few.
Tell me about that then. So what style of food are we talking? What's the...
Obviously, I'm Caribbean, I'm Jamaican, so I love making Jamaican food, but I am also plant-based. So a lot of the
That's
time...
That's posh for vegan, isn't it?
Well, it is. But I don't think I'm really claim vegan.
I was plant-based for about 6 years.
Very nice.
Before it became plant-based. It was vegan back then.
And that's it, I can't call it vegan. I eat honey. Oops.
Oh, I see. Okay, so let's rewind. It's not a lifestyle choice. It's a food only.
Yeah.
Because are you dressed in leather or the?
No, but I do have a leather jacket.
Okay.
But it was my mum's. I mean, I don't. From
We're
the
like
80s.
shaming you on the podcast and then simultaneously making excuses and walking it back. But no. So tell us more about the food. So you cook and you want to open a restaurant. You cook at home or do you cook for anything else?
I cook at home. I cook for. I do my own events sometimes, but I'm also doing a birthday party soon.
So you're a caterer?
Yeah, I'm going to cater the whole party, I think.
And the events are food and dance or just food?
I mean, it's more of a passion project. I can't really claim it.
Well, listen, Ballet Nights Caribbean Nights, where he dances and then you eat the food afterwards.
Oh my gosh. I mean, no, I do have something up my sleeve where the food and the arts do mix, but that's something for another day.
Yeah, we'll go to my office. So what? Hang on. So what food is this? I'm not overly familiar with Caribbean food. What are the kind of? Give me like your favorite dish.
So I guess I won't say my favorite dish because it's going to be plant-based, but I would say like the most famous ones are like jerk chicken,
right,
dumplings, rice and peas. But my partner's from Hong Kong, so we also do a little bit of like a Jamaican and Asian fusion. We call it Jamasian.
Jamasian.
So yeah.
Do you know, to get me to stop talking is you've really blown my mind. I think you need to go and get that trademark done today.
Right?
So what's a Jamaican dish?
So there's the famous dish in Jamaica called ackee and saltfish.
Yes.
You've heard of it, right? So ackee is the national fruit. It only grows in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And then there's a famous Szechuan
chicken, or Szechuan style of cooking.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's mapo tofu, and then so our iconic one is mapo ackee, where we kind of instead of using tofu, we use ackee instead.
Yeah.
And then along with the Szechuan, we add a bit of Scotch bonnet and a little bit of jerk seasoning. Just
Scotch bonnet.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to piece out there. I'll take I can do a lemon and herb. I can do a medium at Nando's max. So Scotch bonnet's taking it to a new level, right?
I mean, it's the only pepper we really use in Jamaican cooking. Really, is Scotch bonnet. I mean, it's a very tiny bit.
Oh, okay. So you're not chucking. I mean, the thing people don't realise about spicy food often is that it's actually the vegetarian stuff that's the killer stuff.
Yeah.
That's where it gets to its spiciest.
Yeah.
So so Jamaican. What are you serving me if I come over for dinner next week? Let's say.
What day?
Oh my goodness, she's booked and she's busy. I'm so sorry. We'll never find out now.
Well, if it was a Sunday, I would give you a good old black British roast.
Oh, okay.
Which is very similar to a British roast, but it just adds a few of the Caribbean things. If it was a weekday and it was cold, I might give you a beautiful soup, a red pea stew. And it sounds like simple.
Sounds amazing. I don't eat any of these things.
Oh, you know what? Next time I see you, I'll bring you some.
And now you have to invite me for dinner. I'll see you next week on Sunday.
You sat next to me and my cat.
And your cat?
Oh yeah, my
we can't do any more tangents. But honestly, just quickly then, tell me about your cat. I'm a big cat person.
His name's Ninja.
Ninja the cat?
Ninja.
Right. Did you just wave at your cat?
I did. I'll show him this later.
Okay, you show him it later.
Yeah, he'd love seeing it.
Okay, it's a while till it comes out, but I'll put it in his reminders. Has he got a calendar as well?
Yes, very
Okay.
full. I was going to bring him actually. I thought I could sit here.
You were going to bring the cat to the podcast. I would have been
He
up for
travels with us everywhere actually. Really? Yeah, we go whenever I'm in Manchester or on tour somewhere. My partner was on tour and he was a tour cat.
I don't want to make any promises, but I could sit here with my cat and you could sit here with your cat.
That would be amazing.
And it would be the Jamaican Cat podcast with Jamiel.
Jamiel.
It was Jamazing. Do you know what? As this starts just gently deconstruct into just a load of jokes between me and you, because you're a fantastic personality, I think it's time to pose Darcy. Naeem, this is our second attempt at this because you, as a choreographer, needed to make changes.
You know how it is, right before the lights go up.
So, no, I don't know how that is, but tell us about how you've posed Darcy and why.
So Darcy is in a kind of like a stag leap, and the back leg is in a back attitude flex because I feel like attitude position. And if you see our work, you'll see that we use attitude quite a lot. It's quite iconic.
But don't point your feet. That's the...
Well, it's in one of our pieces. In Don't Step on My Shoes, actually the feet are flexing in a lot of the attitudes.
Right.
It was an artistic choice.
That's what we'll call it. Naeem, it's been amazing to have you on the show today. I really enjoyed talking with you. I hope our audience are enjoying this too. We'll be back with another guest soon, but I want to say thank you to Nahum McLean, and you can see BlacBrik on April the 1st at Ballet Nights 7, Pillars and Pioneers. Thanks for watching, audience at home. Thank you to our live audience, and I'll see you at the next one.